Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're well. Today is Wednesday. It's the 29th of April. We're getting ready for Parshas Emor. And I want to do something a little bit different today. I usually share different Divrei Torah that I found in Sfarim, but I wanted to share with you something today, which is an incredible piece that made such an impact on me. I'm going to say this has got to be 15, if not more, years ago. I was able to hear an incredible lecture from Rabbi David Foreman. Rabbi David Foreman lives in the Five Towns area in Woodmere in New York. He's had quite a distinguished career in terms of teaching, in terms of edu as a Jewish educator, and in terms of writing as well. Here's a brief bio of him that you'll see there. He's the founder and CEO of Alpha Beta Academy, and you can see more about them online. There's a link. In earlier years, he had served as an editor for Art Scroll Schottenstein edition of the Talmud, and he had also taught biblical themes at Johns Hopkins University. So that's in Maryland. So he was living in the Baltimore area at that point. He currently resides in Woodmere, New York, with his wife and children, and he also serves as a resident scholar at Young Israel of Woodmere. So he continues to teach Torah in very innovative ways, and I cannot say that I'm someone who has had the privilege of learning all or an incredible amount of or reading an incredible amount of Rabbi David Foreman's Divrei Torah, but whenever I read something of his, it's always insightful, and he has the ability to connect dots and make connections where no one's ever seen them before. And this was an incredible piece. I want to share this with you. So, towards the end of this week's Parsha in Emor, there's a rather startling episode that just it's jarring, and it just leaves us with feeling like this is just unresolved. It's unsettled. And that is the incident of the Mekalel. The Mekalel is the blasphemer. He's the one who curses God, and he's sentenced to death, and he's stoned to death. And then the law is taught about what is to happen if anyone is Mekalel as Hashem, if anyone blasphemes in the way that this Mekalel did. It is a very, very disturbing episode, and it's all the way at the end of Parshas Emor, and it just ends so abruptly. And Rabbi Foreman has an approach to understanding this and seeing almost a sequel of this show up in Sefer Shoftim. I've never seen anyone else make this connection, but I want to share this with you. This is just it just I found it startling, and it was an incredible piece.
He's
So
the
let's
king of connections.
yeah, that's what he does. He makes connections where people have never seen them before. I had a chance to ask him about this one. This one just knocked my socks off. And I said, like, have you had a chance to see, has anybody alluded to this before? And he says, no, he's done research and he has not seen this. But there's a Talmudic term you'll see every and then that says "Hinichu li makom min hashamayim," that God left me a place to, like, put in my 2 cents and make my efforts. Like, this wasn't a case where I was machave and I had been intuitive to someone else's thing. Let's just share this. So this is his theory. And we'll leave it at that as a theory, but it's compelling. So let's read the episode as it appears at the end of Parshas Emor. And here it is. It's on page 1. It's chapter 24. That's Perachaf Daled. It starts with Pasuk Yud. Vayetze ben Isha Yisraelis. The fellow goes out, and the Torah identifies him. He's a son of a Jewish woman. V'hu ben Ish Mitzri. However, his dad, in other words, his mother is Jewish, his father is Egyptian. In Judaism, does Jewish identity follow the mother or the father? The mother. So he's Jewish. So he had an Egyptian father and a Jewish mother. Besoch ben Israel, he goes out in the middle of the Jewish camp. Vaynatsuba machneh, he gets into a fight with some people. He quarrels with people in the middle of the camp. Ben HaYisraelis, this son of the Jewish woman, the Ish HaYisraeli, and he's quarreling with a man who is a fully Jewish man. It doesn't tell us what the fight's about. Yud Aleph, 11. Vayikov ben Aisha HaYisraelis as Hashem. Out of frustration, he curses the divine name, and he pronounces the divine name and then he curses it. So he's the ultimate blasphemer. Vayikalel, he curses it. Vayaviu so el Moshe, and they bring him. People who are around are so upset about what he's just done. They bring him almost like, they grab him, they bring him to Moshe. The Shemimo, and now the Torah identifies, oh, by the way, what was his mom's name? Shalom Isbas, Divri Lamate Dan. And she was coming from the tribe of Dan. He's put in a stockade, so to say, lifrosh lahem al pi Hashem, because they need to find out from God what's the verdict on this guy. What do we do with him? So God says, here's the verdict. Take this guy el michutz l'machana, take this blasphemer outside the camp. Anyone who heard his blasphemy, they should put their hands on his head. Al rosho. And after which he is to be stoned. Tesvav 15. And now, after this episode and everyone sees what happened, issue the following warning. Anyone who curses, who blasphemizes God, they're going to have to bear their sin. Tezzayin. V'nokev shem Hashem mos yumas. Anyone who blasphemously pronounces the name of God will be put to death. Ragom yirgamu bo kol eda, will be stoned by the congregation. Kagir kezrak b'nakvo shem yumas. No matter who this person is, a convert, a resident, it doesn't matter. If they do this, they're going to be put to death. Chav Gimel, one more pasuk at the end of all this. It says, "Vaydaber Moshe el bnei Yisrael." Moshe gives all these instructions to the Jewish people. V'yotziu es mekalel michutz hamachaneh. They bring him outside the camp. V'yirgemu oso oven, and they stone him to death. V'bnei Yisrael asu kasher tzivah Hashem es Moshe. And the Jewish people carries out exactly what God had told Moshe to do. Now Rashi here quotes the Medrash just to give us some background. What was this fight? This all began with a fight. What was this fight about? How do we understand it? So Rashi's quoting the Medrash. It says as follows: "Vayitze ben Isha Yisraelis." This fellow who was a son of a Jewish woman, and she was from Shevet Dan. He goes out, and that's when he starts getting in a fight, and then he curses. Mehechan yatsa. Where did he come out from? In other words, what's going on here? There's so much of the story that's missing. So the Medrash tells us here's our rabbinic tradition. Umas Nisa. We learned in a brisa. Amra. What did the Brisa teach us? Mibezdino shel Moshe. He emerged when it says Vayetze. He left Moshe's court, and he left Mechuyav. He left guilty. In other words, there was some kind of court case, and he was found to be guilty. The court ruled against him, and that's what set him off. What was the court case about? Baliten alo betoch machnei Dan. He wanted to pitch his dent amongst the tribe of Dan, because he said, my mom is from Dan. So Amrulo, the Danites ask him, Mativ Cholkan, what are you doing here? In Jewish law, tribal affiliation goes after who? The father. What was this guy's father? An Egyptian, so he does not have tribal affiliation. So why are you pitching your tent in the Machane Dan? Amrulami bnei Dan anochi, ani. I'm from the tribe of Dan, based on his mother. Amrulo, they say to him, Ishal diglo bosos lebeis avosam ksiv. The Torah says tribal affiliation is based on a father, not a mother. And we just set up this whole system. You got to stick to the laws, and we're Shevet Dan. Shevet Dan has a reputation. What does Dan sound like? Din. We go by the letter of the law. You're not following the letter of the law. The way it works, tribal affiliation is based on the father. You don't belong here. Don't set up your tent here. So he says, but I can't go after my father. My father's not Jewish. He was Egyptian. Nichnas l'beis dino shel Moshe. They go into Moshe's court. V'yatza mechuyav. And Moshe says, yeah, what can I tell you? Shevet Dan is right. This is not where your tent should be. Amad v'gadaf. At that point, he got so angry, he basically feels there's no place for me. He starts to curse and blaspheme. That's how the story unfolds. That's the backstory here. No, that's the Makoshe Sheitzim.
Oh.
That occurred at a different point. Correct. That's at a different point. This is the Makalo. Those are the two people who end up in the Mishmar, in the stockade, and it was during the same period. However, it was two different episodes. So this is the Makalo, this is the blasphemer. I for years this bothered me, and I remember I wrote a letter. I had a friend in yeshiva who introduced me to this concept. When Reb Chaim Kanievsky was still healthy, you could write him a letter, and I would always include an envelope with return postage and my address, so he didn't have to spend money on his own postcard or something, right from Israel. I got Israeli stamps that I did this with, and that way, because otherwise he was sending back postcards. He would send back like 3-word answers, because what would happen is he was an absolute encyclopedia. He was always learning Torah. He had it all on his fingertips. So if you had a question and you wanted to know, have you ever seen anything about this, you were not going to get a lengthy answer, but it was really cool. You'd get these postcards back with these 3-word answers. Either it says yes, no, or look here, and he'd give you a source, and that was it. It was never a lengthy, and again, for good reason. His time was valuable, and he was responding to tons and tons of letters like this. So when I was in yeshiva, I remember sending him several of this, and then that's when I realized, why am I asking him to spend money on a postcard, I'll send along with my letter a return, a self-addressed return envelope. So I got some about Israeli postage, and that's what I did. So I sent him a letter about this Rashi, and I said, I just want to understand. I get it. Shevet Dan is telling him you don't belong here, and Moshe says they're right. Where was he supposed to go? So he says there was a section that was set up in the Midbar for, let's say, the Eruv Rav. That was the member that collected multitudes, people who didn't have a Jewish father who were accompanying Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar. There was a section for them. By the letter of the law, that's where this guy should have been, because the Shevet Dan was saying, according to the letter of the law, you're right. That's where they belong. Okay. Now, that's what it says here. So it says one more Rashi, Ben Ish Mitzri. It says he was a son of an Egyptian man. Who was this Egyptian? So Rashi again quotes the Medrash, and it says as follows: Hua Mitzri Shehargo Moshe. Believe it or not, this was the Egyptian that Moshe killed. Do you remember Moshe saw an Egyptian beating another Jew when he went out in Parshas Shmos? That was this guy's father. So Moshe had killed this guy's Egyptian father. What's the backstory there? Rashi quotes the Medrash that says as follows: is that this Egyptian taskmaster had his eyes on Shlomis Bas Divri and wanted to have his way with her. So what he did was he basically summoned this husband out to do slave labor at night, so he wouldn't be home. He went into the house disguising himself as the husband, as the Jewish husband, and unbeknownst to Shlomis Bas Dibri, he had his way with her. She was thinking this was her husband, and when this guy came back, he figured out what had happened, was rightfully upset about this. And when the Egyptian taskmaster saw that the guy knew what happened, that's why he was beating him to try to silence him. That's when Moshe stepped in and killed the Egyptian taskmaster. So the whole thing's a tragic story from start to finish. And this Mikalo, he is the product of that rape. Basically, this was because it was not consensual. So he's the product of that unconsensual, non-consensual union. That's who this Mikalo was. What an awful story! What a really, really awful story. But it leaves you just wondering, unresolved. Your heart goes out to this guy. This guy's feeling the sense of just non-belonging, and he wants to belong. He wants to be part of Bnei Yisrael, and he's closest affiliation is with Shevet Dan because that's where his mom's from. So he pitches his tent there. And Shevet Dan basically spits him out. They say, no, the letter of the law, and you don't fit with it, you don't belong here. They take him to Moshe's court, and Moshe sides with Shevet Dan, saying, yeah, we're following the letter of the law here. And like what Rav Chaim said, so you got to go to the Erev Rav. You don't belong camping with the Jewish people. That's what he basically told him. And your heart goes out to this fellow. He came into this world under such tragic circumstances. His father was no good character. He was killed by Moshe. This guy is now just been spit out by Shevet Dan. All he wants to do is belong. That leads him to this crazy frustration. That's why he ends up cursing God and he's put to death. What a terrible story. And your heart can't go out to this guy just wondering, couldn't people just be a little bit more flexible? Couldn't Shevet Dan have shown this guy a little bit more flexibility? And I hate to say this too, but he went to Moshe's court. Should Moshe have showed him a little bit more flexibility? These are questions that's on like everyone's mind when you read the story of the Makalo. It's a tragic, tragic story, and the Torah just leaves it and moves on to the next parsha. What on earth happens here? So Rabbi Foreman said this had bothered him for years, and he said when he was learning Sefer Shoftim, all of a sudden it hit him. There may very well be a sequel. There may very well be an act two to the story of the Makalo. And this blew my mind, and I want to share it with you. So Sefer Shoftim, we're in chapter 17, Yud Zayin. We're just going to fly through this. We'll read the chapter together. And this is the episode called Pesel Micha. There was an idol of Micha. Micha was one of the people who had left Egypt and brought some idolatry with him. And he basically introduced idol worship into the land of Israel. That's in the story of Shoftim. It's a wild, wild story. Let's see what it is. So we're going to read through it quickly. So it's Yud Zayin. So it's Pasuk Aleph. Vayish me'har Ephraim. There was a guy who was from the mountains of Ephraim. So that sounds as if he's from the Shevet Ephraim. Ushmo, and what was his name? Michayahu. His name was Michayahu. Beis. Vayomer Limo, he says to his mother one day, he says to his mother, there were 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you. Ve'at alis v'gam amart ba'aznai. and about which you cursed, and you also spoke about it in my ears. So he says, Hinea kesef iti. I feel bad. I'm the one who stole your money. In other words, this guy's mother was throwing a fit one day saying, I had money, I had silver stolen from me. I had 1,100 pieces of silver that were stolen from me. I curse whoever the bandit was who took it. Michael overhears this and he fesses up. He says to his mother, look, I heard about it. I fess up. I've got it. I'm the one who took it. So then the mother says, now I feel bad. I cursed you. So she says, Baruch b'ni Hashem. You should be blessed to God. I want to undo that curse. So now she blessed him. So we got this little kleptomaniac named Micha, and he basically steals from his mother. He fesses up. She blesses him. Gimel. He returns the 1,100 pieces of silver limo to his mother. And now the mother says, you know what? I want, I feel bad about what happened. And you know what I'm going to do now? And I feel bad I cursed you. I want to give that 1,100 shekels of kesef. I want to give it to tzedakah. So it says, Vatomer imo hakdesh hikdashti as a kesef l'Hashem yadi livni. The mother says, I really can't take it back. I already dedicated. And when I was all distraught that it was stolen from me, what I basically said was, okay, God, if I ever get it back, it's going to be yours. I'm giving it to tzedakah. Lasos Pasalu Masecha. So she says, I've already dedicated it, and what I want is I want you to go make an idol from it. Vata shiven alach. And now I'll restore it to you. So this is just really weird. The mother is saying, basically, I made a pledge to God that I'm so grateful about the fact that I've got this money returned to me. Micha, I want you to do something. Go take this and make an idol for me. Now, idol worship is clearly forbidden, so it's just a bizarre thing that the mother wants this idol. Okay, let's see further. So I'm giving you the money back. Okay, Dalet. Vayoshev as a kesef limo, so he restores the money to the mother. Vatikach imo masayim kesef vatitnei letzoref. So what does his mother do? She takes 200 pieces of silver and she gives it to a silver worker. Vayasehu pesel masecha. So out of that 200, no, she got 1,100 back. And he says, okay, I'll keep 900, 200 of it, take and make an idol. So 200 he makes an idol, and Vayihi beves Michayo. And now Micha's got this idol. This is unheard of in Israel. There's just no idols. This is before there's rampant idol worship. So he's got this idol. So let's see, we're on the next page. We're on page 3. Hey, Vayish Micha lo beis Elohim. So now what did Micha do? Now that he's got this idol, he basically opens up a roadhouse, a side on the side road. He's got his little avodah zarah house. People always had a taiva; they had a desire for idol worship. There were no idols. Now he had someone craft for him a silver idol, so he opens up. He's got his little roadside idol house there. Vayas ephod, and he wants to basically have competition. The Mishkan exists in Shiloh at this time, so he basically wants to say, I've got my own little private Mishkan, but I can't have my own private Mishkan unless I got someone who could serve as a Kohen and wear the Kohen clothes. So I got an idol. I want to fool people to let them think that this is a place where there's some kind of legitimate service of God going on. So now I've got to make clothes for a Kohen. Vayas ephod, so he made an ephod, utrafim, and he also made trafim by Maleas Yad Achad Mibanav, and he initiated one of his sons, V'ilola Kohen. So he turns one of his sons, you'll be my priest in my little, I'm making a backyard mishkan, this competition to Shiloh. We'll get people to have a little breakaway, basically. We're having a breakaway shtibel here, and it's going to be filled with idols, and you'll be my Kohen. Vav. Now remember, he's from Ephraim. He's not a real Kohen. A Kohen has to be from Shevet Levi. So he says, I got my fake Kohen here serving in my little shtibel for Avodah Zarah. Vav. By Yamim Ahem, in those days, Ein Melech Yisrael, there still was no king. Isha Yashar Beinav Yaseh. In a sense, it was a little bit of the Wild West. There was no one keeping law and order. There was the time of the Shoftim, but there was no king. Vav. Oh, that was Vav. 7. Zion. V'nari Beis Lechem Yudah. Comes along a young man from Beis Lechem Yehuda. If he's from Beis Lechem Yehuda, which tribe does that mean he's from? Yehuda. So he says he's from Shevet Yehuda. He says Mimishpachas Yehuda v'hu Levi. At the same time, he's also a Levi. How do you have a guy who's from Yehuda but he's also a Levi? Correct. The father might be from Yehuda, but V'hu Levi, if he's a Levi, means his dad's a Levi. So he's of mixed tribal affiliation. On the one hand, his dad is a Levi, but his mom's from Yehuda. V'hu Gar Sham, and he sojourned there. So you got this traveling guy who his father's a Levi, his mom's from Yehuda, and that's where he's just passing through the area of Ephraim. So Ches, Vayelech Yishmael. So the man went out of the city, Beis Lechem Yehuda, Lagur Asher Yimtza. So this guy leaves Beis Lechem Yehuda. Again, his mom is from Yehuda, his dad is a Levi, and he leaves the Yehuda region just to figure, okay, I'll hit the road. Let's see where life takes me. He's like a vagabond. So it says, Vayavo Har Ephraim. He comes to the region of Ephraim. Ad Beis Micha. He comes to the Micha, to the Shtibel for Avodah Zarah. Lasos Darko, and he's continuing on his way. He stops in there. Tess. Vayomer lo Micha. Micha says to him, Me'ayin Tova, where'd you come from? Vayomer love Levi Anochi. I'm really a Levi because my dad's a Levi. However, mi Beis Lechem Yehuda, but I'm coming from Beis Lechem Yehuda because my mom's from Yehuda. Vanochi Olech, and I'm going Lagur Basher Emtza. I never really have been able to find my place. I'm just going to go find my own way, going to chart my own course here in Israel, wherever I find a place. But I haven't been able to really find my place. Yud. Vayomer lo Micha. Micha says to him, Shavoi Madi, do me a favor, stay here. Now that you told me that you're a Levi, I got a job for you. Because I've got my shtibel for Avodah Zarah. I've got one of my kids who's serving as a Kohen, but he's not a Kohen because he's not from Levi. If I could have an authentic Levi in here serving as a Kohen for my Avodah Zarah, now I can be legit competition to Shiloh. Because people, when everyone's sneezing at me before saying, you don't have a real Kohen, I got a real Kohen. He's got some from Sheva Levi here. So he says, do me a favor, Yud. Stay here. I'll let you be a chief. I'll let you be a Kohen. And I'll pay you 10 pieces of silver for a period. I'll give you good wages. I'll give you good clothing. And I'll give you all the provisions you need. And the Levi decided, okay, sounds good. This is a gig I'll take. So here you got this vagabond Levi who's wandering from Yehuda. His mom's from Yehuda, his dad's from Levi. He needs a job, and Micha is offering to be, he could be the legit Kohen in his Avodah Zarah shtibel. And he says, fine. Yud Aleph, Yoel Halevi, Lasheves Asich. And this Levi decides that, okay, I'm going to stay with Micha. And he was to him as one of his own kids. He really took care of him well. Yud Beis, Micha initiated this Levi, and he turned him into, you'll be my Kohen for my Avodah Zarah shtibel, Micha. And that's where he was, in the house of Micha. Yud Gimel, Vayomer Micha, and Micha says to him, Ata Yadati, now I know, Ki Yetiv Hashem Li, that God is so good to me. Ki Haya Li Halevi LaKohen. I needed a Kohen, and all of a sudden this Levi just came in. It's Bashert. He came in. I needed a Levi to serve as my Kohen for my Avodah Zarah shtibel, and God sent me exactly what I needed. It's just amazing these words could be in your tongue. It's an Avodah Zarah shtibel, and you're saying it's so Bashert. God sent him to me. Again, this is the warped thinking of I want to be involved in both Avodah Zarah and Hashem. Okay, let's see this next chapter, Yud Ches. So how does the story continue? Wild, at the bottom of page 3. In those days, Ein Melech Yisrael. Again, there was no king. It was kind of the Wild West. At that point in history, Shevet Dan was not yet fully settled. Shevet Dan was still trying to conquer a piece of Eretz Yisrael to get rid of the locals, the inhabitants, the Canaanim who were there, so they can finally set up shop. They haven't yet been able, all other tribes have been able to set up shop. Dan still hasn't. So it says, Until that point in time, Shevet Dan, they're still living out of tents. They haven't been able to really build houses and set up cities, and they're sick of this. They don't want to live out of suitcases anymore. They're looking for a place. So they send out a scouting party to go look for an area where there's still Canaanim that we could conquer and take their land. They send them out from these regions, 5 good warriors. To go spy out the land, and to investigate where can we conquer, where can we beat up some Canaanim and take the land. And they said, let's reconnoiter a bit. And they, on their way to get to where they want to go, they pass through the mountains of Ephraim ad Beis Micha. And sure enough, they pass by Micha's Avodah Zarah shtibel. And they camp out there. They spend the night. Next page, we're on 4. Gimel. Hema im Beis Micha. They're camping out in the lodging in the house of Micha. The Hema hikiru. And all of a sudden, they recognize as Kol Anar Halevi. Say, 1 second. that's a little bit of a famous guy. We recognize that voice from somewhere. You're Cohen that you have working as you're Levi who you have working as a Cohen and you're Avodah Zarah shtibel. We recognize that voice. Vayisuru sham. So they go to check it out. Vayomru lo mi aviyach. What are you doing here? How did you end up here working in the Avodah Zarah shtibel? Umato sebeza. What are you here for? Malachapo. What business do you have here? Dalet, Vayomer Alayhem. So this little Levi says to them, he told them the whole spiel about how I needed a place. I was a vagabond. Micha set me up to be the Kohen in his Avodah Zarah shtibel. So he hired me to be the functioning Kohen in his Avodah Zarah shtibel. Hey, Vayomer Lo, so they say to him, Shal na ve'Elohim. They said, do us a favor. We're going to make you a better job offering. So daven to God and ask God, and we want you to ask God and pray for us that we should be successful in what we want to do. In other words, we're on this mission to reconnoiter and to figure out where we could conquer so Don could finally set up. Can you do us a favor? You're a Kohen and you got a direct link and you got your Avodah Zarah shtibel here. Daven for us, we should be successful. Vayomer lama Kohen lechulu shalom. So he says to them, go in peace. Nochach Hashem darchechem asher telchu bo. God has revealed that you're going to be successful. So Zion, 7, ve'ilchu chameshes anashim, those 5 people go, ve'yavo liyasha, they come to a place called Laish, vayiru es ha'am asher b'kirbo yosheves levetach, they see the local Canaanites there are settled in and they're all secure. Kamishpat sidonim shokeru voteach, they don't have any fears, ve'in machlim davar ba'aretz yorshim etzer, and they have no security whatsoever, rechokim hema mitzidonim, and they don't have any backup who could get there quickly. And they have no bonds, they have no treaties. So they say this is the perfect area to conquer. We found this Laish area, and these Canaanim are here. They don't have anyone who's going to back them up. Let's conquer them, and that's where Dun will set up. So the 5 who are out on the scouting mission, they go back to the rest of Dun, Veshtol, who is in Tzira and Eshtol, and they say to them, so nu, what do you have to tell us? Tes, they say, come on with us. We found a great spot. Al Ta'eltsu, and don't be lazy. There's no reason to be lazy. Come, we got the perfect spot to conquer. Yud v'tkavachem tavo al boteach. When we get there, you're going to come as secure people. They're sitting there. These local Canaanites, they don't know what's about to hit them. It's a great expanse of land. God has set it up for us. It's in our hands. There's nothing lacking there. It's everything. It's the perfect spot. And we can attack. They have no allegiances with anyone else. It can all be ours. This is perfect. So all the Danai, the Shevet Dan, they all travel. Mitzira, Meshtol, Shesh Meosish. They put an army of 600 together. Chagur Kli Milchama, and they're armed to the teeth. Yud Beis, Vayalu v'Yachnu v'Kiryas Yarim b'Yehuda. They camp out near Kiryas Yarim. That's where modern day Telstone is. That's where they camp out. Al Ken Kor L'Makom Ahu Machne Dan. That's why the area where they camped out that night, they called it Machne Dan. Arayom Hazeh, Hinei Acher Kiryas Yarim. Right near Kiryas Yarim, there's a place called Machne Dan. Yud Gimel, Vayover Misham Har Ephraim. From there they go to the Ephraim region, Vayvo Ad Beis Micha, and they get to the house of the Avodah Zarah shtibel where Micha is. Yud Daled, Vayanu Chameshes Anoshim, Aholchim Arageles Aretz Laish, and the 5 guys who had initially gone on the scouting party, they tell the 600 warriors from Dan, by the way, guys, you know there's like this incredible secret here. There's an Avodah Zarah shtibel here, and they got real full-fledged idols. They got an ephod. They got all this stuff. There's some good stuff here. And we got to know what should we do about this. Tezvav 15, Vaisur Shama, and so they take a detour on their way to war. Vayvo al Beis Anar Alevi Beis Micha Vaishul Shalom. They go to Avodah Zarah shtibel, and they go to that Kohen who's working for Micha, and they say to him, hey, they introduce themselves. Tazayin v'sheish meosish chagurim klei melchamtam, and there's 600 warriors who are armed to the teeth. Nitzavim Pesach Shar Asher Midei Dan. They're standing right outside the door. Yud Zayin vayalu chameshes anashim. The 5 of them who had originally gone to scout things out, they steal the goods. They say, okay, we got 600. Are you really going to fight us? And they go in and they steal the idol, they steal the ephod, they steal all the valuables of the Avodah Zarah shtibel. Va'kohen nitzav Pesach Hashar. And the Kohen, meaning this would-be Kohen who was working for Micha, standing right there. V'sheish me'os ish chagur kli milchama. And also there's the 600 warriors. He's not going to fight them. So he said he was going to daven for them, which he did, and they went on the scouting mission, and they found the spot, and they're on their way to go attack. On their way to attack the Canaanim, they stopped again at the Beis Micha.
They thank him?
Yeah, and they say, we're going to steal all your stuff. The Eila Bo Beis Micha, they stole everything. And Vayomer, I'm sorry, Yudches, Ve'elu Bo Beis Micha, they went into the house of Micha, Ve'yichu es pesel ephod, they took the idol, they took the ephod, all the garments, that's a trofim, that's a masecha, everything. Vayomer aleim HaKohen matem osim, and that Kohen says, what are you guys doing? I daven for you. This is like, well, your question, and this is what you're doing? You're putting me out of business? You're stealing everything? What's going on here? Yudches, Vayomer lo. And they say to him, listen, Hacharesh, be quiet. Simi picha, put your hand over your mouth. V'lechi manu, we got a better gig for you. You're working here for Micha in this place here. How much traffic is coming through here? But we're about to conquer this area, and we'll set you up. You need a little avodah zarah shtibel? We'll build you a better place, and you could be the Kohen over there. You have no allegiances to Micha. Come with us. We'll give you a better gig, and we'll set you up. We'll make a better Avodah Zarah house for you. Lechi Manu, come with us. Ve'elanu l'avla Kohen. You'll be a leader, and you'll be a Kohen there. Hatova Yoscha Kohen leveis ish echad. Would you rather just be this little small little chief over here in his little Avodah Zarah shtibel on the side of the road? Or Yischa Kohen l'shever l'mishpacha b'Yisrael. You could be a full-fledged. We'll build you a much better place than what you got over here. A chaf rather. Vayitev leva Kohen. So this little Kohen decides, you know what? That's a good deal. First of all, I'm not ready to start arguing with them because there's 600 guys armed to the teeth, and they're making me a better deal than what I had here. Vayikach es ephod. So he says, okay. He took all his gear, that's a trofim and the idols, that's a pesel, vayavo, v'keravam, and he joins them. He says, I'm done with Micha, I'm going with Sheva done. Chaf Aleph, 21, vayifnu v'yelchu, they turn and they go. Vayasimu es hatafes hamiknev es hakvud alefneim, and they put the little ones in the kettle and the goods before them. Chaf Beis, hemer chiku mebeis Micha, they got away from the house of Micha, v'anashim asher babatim asher im beis Micha, nizaku. And then all of Micha's family, they start screaming because they realize, hey, they just been robbed. Vayadbiku has been done, and they run and they catch up and they caught up to where all these done soldiers are. Chav Gimel v'ikru al b'nei dan, they call out to them vayisabu b'neiam, and they turn around and vayomer l'micha malacha ki nizakta. Micha, like, how could you do this? How could you join? They just ripped us off, and you're joining them. Chav Daled vayomer es elo hi. Asher asisi lekachtem. So Micha says, and my God, meaning my idol that I made, lekachtem v'sakohen. He says, what kind of injustice? You stole my idol and you stole my Kohen. Vatelchu maliod. What else do I have here? Mazet tomru elai malach. And how do you respond? How do you do this? Vayomru elav b'nei dan. These 600 warriors basically tell him, you really want to mess with us here? Al tishma kol chaymaru. Don't even argue with us. Pen yifku b'chem. If you really push us too hard, we're going to beat you up. So basically, stop it right now. Anashim mari nefesh, because we are people who are pretty embittered right now. We're pretty miserable. We haven't had a place to really settle down. We're about to go make war. The last thing we need is you kvetching about that we stole your idol and your Kohen. You better stop now. V'yasafta nafshecha. If you really push us too hard, we're going to take your life in nefesh pesacha. We're almost done with this. Chavav 26. Ve'elchu b'nei dan l'darkam. So b'nei dan continue marching on. Vayar Micha ki chazakim hema mimenu. And Micha sees that these guys are far stronger than he is. V'yifem ve'yeshav el beso. So he goes back with his tail between his legs, dejected. I just got ripped off. They took my idol. They took my avodah zarah shtibel, and they took my Kohen. But what can I do? I'm not going to argue with them. And what? I'm going to go to like the high court in Yerushalayim and say they stole my idol. Like he's got no. It might make place, right? And I can't do anything about this. Chav Zayim. V'hem alachu es asher asa Micha. They took everything that Micha had, his idol, that's a coin. They took his coin, asher hayalo that he had. They go to Laish, Hashem shokeru vetach. And again, that nation, the Canaanim who were living there, were just all in peace. They had no idea what storm was coming. Vayaku asam lefi charav. And the Shevet Dan is successful at knocking off the Canaanites there. That's your Sarfu Beish. And they burned the city down. Chavches. Ve'in matzil, and nobody came to help them. None of the non-Jewish inhabitants of Canaan came to help them. Kiruchokim et Sidon, because they were far away from Sidon. V'davrei lamiralim, and they didn't have any allegiances or treaties with anyone else. V'be'emek asher lebeis rachov, va'yivnu asa'ir, va'yishvu. And it tells us it was a great spot right near some major roads, and they rebuilt. They made their own city, and they inhabit it. That's where Shevet Dan sets its shop. Chavtes v'yikru shema yir Dan, and they decide to call that town Dan, b'shem Dan Abiyam. They name it after their father Dan. Asher Yulad Yisrael, who was a son of Yisrael. V'lam Laish shema yir Rishona. The original name that the Canaanites called it was Laish. Okay, we're almost done. Two more psukim. Lamed v'yakimu lem b'nei Dan es pesel. When they're done building their town, what else did they do? They built up a real avodah zarah house. They built up a real sanctuary for this idol. Now, what was the name of the Kohen in this whole story? It never gave us his name. Now it gives us his name. The Yehonasan ben Gershom ben Menashe hu ubanav. Who are you Kohanim l'shevet Adani? Who was the Kohen? His name was Jonathan, Yehonasan ben Gershom, the son of Gershom, and Gershom was the son of Menashe. He and his kids, meaning their continual line, Hayukonim Shevet Dani Arayom Gelos Aretz. Until the 10 tribes were kicked out of Israel, there was continuous idol worship in the land of Israel, and the Kohanim, who were in charge in that idol sanctuary, were the descendants of this Yonasan, the son of Gershom, the son of Menashe, until the Jews got exiled from the land of Israel with the 10 tribes. Lamed Aleph, Yisimu Lam es Pesel Micha Asher Asa Kol Yimei Yos Beis Elokim B'Shilo. And that Pesel Micha was running as basically an alternative house of idol worship all the close to 400 years that Mishkan Shiloh was standing in Shiloh. During that entire time, the Pesel Micha had their base Avodah Zarah was operating in Dan, and those Kohanim were working there. And if they were there until the 10 tribes went into Galus, that also means during the first Beis HaMikdash. When Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, the Pesel Micha, that idol of Micha, everything was operating, everything was in full operation during that entire time. That's what we're told there. So now let me share with you what Rabbi Foreman did, which was just mind-boggling. Rabbi Foreman said he starts off with 3 startling similarities between the story of the Mekalel and this story of Pesel Micha. Let's look at the first one. He says, compare Vayikra 24:10. So go back to page 1. Page 1 says 24:10. It tells us who was the Mekalel. He was a Ben Ish Yisraelis. He had a Jewish mother, meaning there was no consistent lineage here. He had a Jewish mother, and he was a Ben Ish Mitzri. And he had a father who was an Egyptian, and he tried to pitch his tent. He had no real place to live. He was kind of a homeless guy. His identity, he was a cross section of 2 different people, 2 different tribes, and he had nowhere to pitch his tent. That was the story of the Mekalel. Now compare that with 18:1. The first pasuk in Parak 18 in Shoftim, which was on page 3, it tells us about that would-be Kohen. That would-be Kohen, it says there, was that would-be Kohen also had, I'm sorry, that shouldn't be 18:1. That should really be 17:1. Why did I write 18:1? Oh no, yeah, okay. No, I'm sorry, 18:1. It's saying 18:1 is correct. Shevet Dan. Look what happened to Shevet Dan in 18:1. Shevet Dan still has no place to unpack, no place to call home. It tells us at the beginning of 18:1, it tells us by Yamim Haim and Melch Yisrael there wasn't a Jewish king yet, and in those days Shevet Dani mevakesh lo nachlo l'shevet. Shevet Dan does not have a place to live. Where did the Mekalel try to pitch his tent? In which Shevet? Dan. And what did Dan do to him? Dan said, you don't belong here. You don't have a place. Mita Keneged Mita, what happens to Shevet Dan at the beginning of this whole episode? They still don't have a place. God's almost saying, let's give you a taste of your own medicine and let's see how you do. You came down so hard on this Mekalel that all he wanted to do was find a place to call home, and everything went south for him. Let's see how you do when you don't have a place to fully call home. Sheva done. You haven't ever, the rest of Klal Yisrael is able to unpack. You haven't unpacked yet. Let's see how you do, Done. How did Done do? They unraveled. And they ended up sacking the house of Micha, stealing the idol, and setting up this idol worship place. So this is a first hint that hit him. This is some serious Mita Keneged Mita. Isn't it ironic? This is happening to Dun. Dun was the one who so mistreated this Mikalo. That's his first hint. Look at his second hint. He says, compare 2410. 2410 again tells you about the mixed situation of the Mikalo, that his mother was Jewish and his father was Egyptian, and he couldn't find a place to really call home. Look at that, how that compares to 17:7. 17:7, Yud Zion, Zion, that told us about this Nar, this guy from Levi. What did it say about him? He was coming from Beis Lechem, Yehuda, which meant that his mother was from Yehuda and his father was a Levi. Where could he pitch his tent? Was he allowed to pitch his tent in Yehuda? Because his dad's not from Yehuda. So here's this guy who's also, so to say, living between two worlds, and he doesn't have a place that he could say, "I'm going to plant my flag with Shevet Yehuda," because that his father's not from Shevet Yehuda. He's a Levi. Levium, they have Arei Levium that are sprinkled around the land of Israel, but for whatever reason, he doesn't want to live in an Ir Levi. There is a place for him, but that's not where he wants to be. He wants to go where he wants to be with but the people from Yehuda aren't interested. So it's almost like there's like some poetic justice going on. Look at this next one. Compare Shoftim 17:11. Again, 17:11. That's what it says. Vayoel Halevi. Look at that word. Vayoel Halevi Lasheves Esish. This Levi decided to, he made an agreement, he entered into a contract, you might say, to dwell with Micha. Compare that to Shmos 2:21, and I have that right beneath. Look at Shmos 2:21, the other place in Tanakh where you see such similar wording. Vayoel Moshe Lasheves es ha'ish. Moshe, it's talking about when he lived with Yisro. Moshe made a decision to go ahead and live with his father-in-law Yisro. So it's all of a sudden you find some comfort. When you're a man without a home and you find some comfort, it feels really good. So it's like almost there's something more going on. Now here's the kicker. Get ready for this. What did we say the last second to last pasuk with the story of Pesel Micha? Look at it back at pasuk Lamed. We're on page 6. Pasuk Lamed, and I bolded it so you see this. This is startling. It says Vayikimu lem b'nei Dun. Dun set up as a pesel. They set up the idol. V'Yonasan ben Gershon finally gives us the name of this priest of the Kohen. It says his name was Yonasan. His father's name was Gershom. And then it says Ben Menashe. Does anything look weird about how Menashe is written and spelled? Look at the Mem Nun Shin He. The Nun is a different font. If you look in a Navi, the Masorah is that the Nun is a different font, it's a different size, and it's also Tola. It's elevated. It's like almost held apart. If you ignore that Nun, what's left? What three letters? Moshe. Did Moshe have a son named Gershom? Yeah. Gershom had a son named Yonasan. You know who this boy was? Moshe's grandson. This one who serves as the priest almost seems to be like Hashem is saying to Moshe, I'm not so happy with the way you dealt with that Mikalo situation. I'm going to have a very similar scenario unfold in the coming generations, and let's see how your family deals with it. What does it feel like when you're not fully settled? Done. Done. You've mistreated that guy because he just wanted to plant his flag and settle down, and you wouldn't let him. Done. How do you do when you're not fully settled? That's how Mita Keneged Mita to Done. But there's also going to be Mita Keneged Mita to Moshe. Moshe, I'm not entirely happy with how you dealt with this situation. Let's see what happens in your family line when someone's a bit in a situation that's in like two different worlds and trying to find his place. How does that work out? Look at this Rashi on Shoftim. This is mind-boggling. Rashi's quoting the Gemara. Ben Menashe, it says that this guy's name was Yonasan, the son of Gershom, the son of Menashe. So it says, Mipnei Kvodo Shel Moshe, out of respect to Moshe, Kosov Nun. The Torah, the Tanakh rather, the Navi inserted a Nun. The grandfather's name was not Menashe. The grandfather's name was Moshe. But to try to respect his dignity, to hide his identity, the Navi stuck in a Nun. But to show you that Nun doesn't belong there, Lishanos is a shame. They changed the name from Moshe to Menashe. But to show you that isn't the real name, Nichtav Tluya. It's written like elevated. That it's in a different. It's not on the same line. So it's telling you there's a hint there. Ignore it. Lomar to tell you Shalohaya Menashe. The real name was not Menashe, Elo Moshe. The real name was Moshe. It looks like this incident of Pesel Micha is almost like Act Two, where God is saying to all the parties involved. I'm not entirely happy with the way you handled that situation in Parshas Emor. Let me bring it around again and let's see when it's in your court. How do you deal with it? Done. I'm not happy with how you dealt with it. You're so by the book, by the book, by the book. You didn't have Rachmanos on an unsettled guy. How do you do when you're unsettled? And we see how Dunn did. Moshe is not so happy with how Moshe dealt that. You couldn't find a way to talk Dunn down and talk them down to like make an exception, let this guy in, let him be. You couldn't have your heart, you couldn't be sensitive to someone who's like in between two worlds and torn like this. And I'm not so happy with that, Moshe. I'm going to put your descendant in a similar situation. Let's see how he does. He did terrible there. This is Rabbi Foreman's suggestion. After I heard it, it was almost haunting because so much about this just like fits like a glove. And Rabbi Foreman's suggestion about this is that number one, not just to say, wow, that's cool, because, definitely is, that is very interesting. But what he wanted to do was as follows. We believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. And there are times in life where we say, wow, something just didn't seem fair. You know what? We have questions about it, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Dayan Ames. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate judge. God sees all that goes on in this world. And if we're frustrated sometimes because we think someone didn't get fair treatment, we should know to just rest assured. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has got a far greater lifespan. He's infinite, far greater than whatever we're going to be able to do. And Hashem has a way of bringing justice to the world and making certain that those who were wronged, those who did wrong, they'll be put in situations where either they're going to receive something similar or they'll be tested in a similar way or they'll be given a second chance. This is almost like a second chance. Unfortunately, the players in Pesel Micha story failed. But so you could say, number one, hopefully, God willing, if we're ever given a second chance, we'll do better the next time. But also, it's a way to be mechazik us, strengthen us. If we ever sense an injustice has taken place, just to feel a little bit better, to say at some point, God will make certain that justice is brought. Again, this is his theory. I'm not going to sign off on it and say that, this is 100% emes. I don't think Rabbi Foreman would say that. This is his theory about Act Two on this situation of the Mekalel that we read about, that we're going to read about in Parshas Emor this week. If this is true, and there's a lot that seems to indicate that it is true, then this is definitely amazing. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. If there's anything that anyone would like to share, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, yeah. But thanks for joining, everyone. Thanks for joining. Yeah, yeah. But that's definitely.